You feel it before you even hear it, a tremor in your chest, as if the world's sorrow has found its way into your ribcage. Beware, the empath's gift can become your undoing when you absorb every ache around you as your own. In the hush before dawn, you wake drenched in phantom tears, drawn into the silent pleas of strangers whose pain you never asked to carry. Something within you stirs a shadow whisper, warning that if you lose yourself in others' suffering, you may drown in currents not your own. You've learned to read energy, like lines on ancient maps tracing the contours of joy and despair in everyone you meet. But each imprint you gather carves away a fragment of your own soul until the boundary between you and the world blurs into a watercolor smear. You stand at life's crossroads, heart open like a flower in winter, and yet you tremble at the thought of closing for self-preservation. Can an empath survive by sheltering her own flame, or must she burn at both ends to light the paths of others? Feel your breath pull you back. Stoic winds whisper through the corridors of your mind. Seneca urges restraint. Marcus Aurelius counsels that you cannot control another's storms, only navigate your own vessel. Yet experience tempts you toward codependency if you do not rescue every drowning soul. Does your worth evaporate? Look harder. There is a line drawn in shadow and light, and stepping over it summons a reckoning. Energy is not infinite. It is a precious currency you must budget lest you bankrupt your essence. You once believed your empathy was an unmixed blessing, a secret talisman. You carried the weight of loved one's grief, as if each burden aligned purpose in your veins. But in the midnight hours, you became the wounded healer, in reverse bleeding into those you sought to mend. The archetypal wounded healer teaches that healing arises from integrating your own wounds, not perpetually stitching the torn edges of others. Without that self-healing, you become a haunted conduit, echoing every unspoken pain like a haunted hall. Notice the shadows creeping at the edges of your awareness. Shadows born of unowned emotions, you siphoned from partners, friends, strangers on park benches. They twist into forms of resentment and guilt, masquerading as selfless sacrifice. You deserve to feel nourished by your own compassion, not depleted by an endless outpour. Your psyche demands restoration. Shadow integration requires that you own what you project. When you absorb another's anger, where does yours go? When you take on their fear, who bears witness to the trembling inside you? You might reject the notion of boundaries as cold or selfish. I am here to feel, to understand, to alleviate. But true empathy does not collapse into martyrdom. It stands as a bridge between hearts wide enough for both love and distance. You learn to recognize the tremor that signals intrusion, to name it before it names you. In those moments of intrusion, you step back, breathe, and reclaim your center, allowing the other's sorrow to pulse without swallowing you whole. Third-person voices echo in your psyche. She cannot sustain this endless giving. He must shield his tender heart. These provocations are not attacks. They are necessary admonitions from a self you have neglected. Listen as they carve out the borders of your inner kingdom. Empathy thrives when your well is full, not parched. You refill by honoring small rituals, a walk at dusk, your spine aligned with the horizon, a morning silence before the world beckons, a ceremony of letting go, visualizing each borrowed sorrow dissolving like mist. As your awareness deepens, you stand firm against the tidal pulls of desperation. You no longer carry burdens destined for others, but offer a steady hand at the riverbank. Your presence becomes a lighthouse rather than a life raft. In this space, healing blossoms. You witness the grief of another with gentle curiosity, then release it like a leaf set free on flowing water. You become the empath who sustains rather than succumbs. Embrace the paradox. You are both vessel and sailor, tender yet resolute. Your gift need not be a curse. It transforms when guided by fierce self-love. Behind you, the echo of every life you've touched hums with gratitude. Ahead lies a path unmarked by exhaustion, illuminated by your sovereign light. and still danger lingers if you forget to uphold your own boundaries. If you forget that you are not the sea itself, but its observer, its guide. Allow this first warning to settle in your bones. Care for others without erasing yourself. Tend to your own wounds as fervently as you tend to theirs. Only then will your empathy bloom into its truest, most luminous form. You step into the silent theatre of your own psyche, where memories of entanglement play on loop that moment, when her tears seeped through your defences, or when his silent desperation knelt at your doorstep. You were drawn by a magnetic pull, convinced that your touch could soothe the jagged edges of their anguish. But the more you absorbed, the more you realized your own reflection grew dimmer, an empath without a mirror. Shadows of resentment seeped from your limbs, unrecognized and unnamed, as if you had become the vessel for every unvoiced sorrow in the world. In this cavern of self-discovery, you confront the archetype of the great nurturer, benevolent queen, tireless mother, soothing oracle. She stands regal until her crown of obligation grows too heavy, tilting her head toward fatigue. The boundary between compassion and compulsion fades. You feel compelled to rescue, to intervene even when the price is the very core of your vitality. This pattern is not fate, but feedback energy exchanges must be reciprocal, yet you have perpetually offered without consenting to receive. Seneca's Stoic counsel resurfaces as an echo in the amphitheatre of your mind. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. You have wasted precious moments by drowning in others' narratives, neglecting the story that belongs to you. Marcus Aurelius would remind you that every person you encounter walks their own road. You cannot carry their burdens as an appendage of your own journey. The empath's gift lies in witness, not in takeover, yet you have worn the cloak of savior long enough to learn its stitches unravel your integrity. Feel the pulse of your heart reclaiming its rhythm, unsynchronized from surrounding pulses. Remember your breath as a sovereign ally, inhaling boundaries, exhaling release. With each cycle you reclaim fragments of self, once lost in labyrinths of emotional entanglement. You begin to discern the subtle tremors that whisper, "This is theirs, not mine." And in that moment of recognition, gratitude blooms, for you are not a sponge, but a prism, refracting energy rather than absorbing it. Third-person voices challenge you again. She must withdraw from the siege of solicitous demands. He needs to practice the art of refusal. These provocations pierce the silence like clarion notes, demanding that you assert an inner territory. Boundaries are not walls built from fear, but fences edged with compassion, delineating where your responsibility ends and another's begins. Practice saying no as an act of self-preservation, not betrayal. Imagine your words like arrows that define space rather than weapons that wound. Reflect upon the labyrinth of your relationships, each twist and turn representing a lesson in self-worth. You once believed that your compassion held intrinsic value only when poured into external vessels. Every moment you withheld care from yourself, you tacitly declared unworthiness. I deserve rest only after everyone else is whole. But transformation beckons you to invert this logic. Your replete spirit becomes the wellspring from which genuine empathy flows without depletion. You are not a sacrificial altar, but a sanctuary of discernment and grace. Note how trauma theory reframes your narrative childhood. Wounding seeded a longing to mend others, to transmute pain into purpose. Yet, unresolved trauma festers when you bypass its darkness in service of external healing. Integration demands that you witness your own scars, invite them into the light, tend them with curiosity, and thereby liberate the psychic energy trapped in old wounds. As you integrate your shadows, you cultivate resilience. Your empathic attunement becomes an act of choice rather than a compulsive reaction. Sense the Anima and Animus waltzing at the periphery of your consciousness, each whispering archetypal scripts about connection and solitude. The Animus urges you to act, to assert your will. The Anima invites you to feel, to surrender. The empath's path weaves between these, the will to guard your boundaries and the surrender to authentic feeling. In this dance, sovereignty emerges. Your heart contracts and expands under your own tutelage, not under the rhythm of external pain. Energy management transforms from concept to daily practice. Visualize a cord connecting you to another's heart. Strengthen your hold on the cord's beginning and practice releasing your grip on its end. With every release, notice the space that opens in your chest, an empty cathedral waiting to be consecrated by your own self-compassion. Here you learn that love directed inward does not diminish your capacity to love outward. It enhances it. You recognize the lure of empathic overdrive, the adrenaline surge of rescuing the addictive high of emotional immersion. But you also learn the serenity of stillness, of being present, without absorbing, of witnessing, without taking ownership. The world's suffering no longer defines your state of being. Instead, you extend a steady hand at the threshold, allowing the other to choose whether to step forward. In this unfolding metamorphosis, you become a pioneer of your own interior universe, charting territories once lost to codependency. Your compass is self-awareness, your map, the integrated shadow. Each boundary you draw, each emotion you claim as your own, fortifies the fortress of your psyche. You rise before dawn, sensing the world's undercurrents, but choosing to remain anchored. In the soft glow of early light, you enact a ritual, hands pressed to your solar plexus. You whisper an affirmation that you belong to yourself first. This moment, small and silent, shapes the architecture of your day. You no longer drift into others' storms by default. You build a moat of mindful presence around your essence. In this space, you can perceive pain without inhaling it, witnessing sorrow without swallowing it. Later, when a friend collapses beneath the weight of heartbreak, you feel their tremor in your bones. Yet you pause, placing a gentle hand near, never directly on your heart. You validate their grief. I see your sorrow, and I hold space for you. Your words are an offering, not a surrender. As they weep, you breathe into your boundary, allowing their tears to flow past without flooding your psyche. You become a steadfast witness, not a sponge. Deep within, your inner critic stirs like a jealous sentinel, warning that this distance will render you cold or uncaring. That voice spins tales of rejection and unworthiness. If you don't feel every pang, you are not truly empathic. You confront it with compassion. Shadow integration teaches that every part of you yearns for acknowledgement. You invite the critic into your awareness, offering curiosity instead of judgment. In naming its fear, you reclaim the power it once held over your empathic responses. You fashion an armor of self-compassion, a mental image of golden light enveloping your body, repelling emotional debris while allowing genuine connection to filter through. This light is fed by daily acts of radical self-care, saying no to extra favors when your tank is low, indulging in creative expression that honors your inner child, nurturing your body with movement and rest. Each act is a declaration your wellspring matters. Third-person shadows murmur at the edges. He still clings to old patterns of overgiving. She must learn that caring without boundaries is no kindness. These provocations are not criticisms, but beacons signaling areas in need of vigilance. You lean into them, using their sharp edge to carve clearer borders around your heart space. Your empathy refines into sensitivity, guided by wisdom rather than blind absorption. Energy management becomes a living practice. You imagine your aura like a magnetic field that you calibrate each day, dialing up receptivity for joy, dialing down permeability for grief that isn't yours. When another's chaos approaches you, visualize a translucent membrane that differentiates your energy from theirs. In this way, you maintain equilibrium, offering kindness without incurring psychic hemorrhage. Relationships evolve as you implement these shifts. In romantic entanglements, you refuse the impulse to tame your partner's storms. Instead, you sit beside them as equals, offering steady support while tending faithfully to your own needs. Friendships deepen because you bring your whole self clear, centered and authentic, rather than the residue of everyone else's wounds. Your presence becomes a gift of clarity, inspiring others to honor their own boundaries. And still the journey unfolds. You recognize moments when old habits try to reclaim territory, when you sense a familiar draw toward rescue, a whisper that you must rescue to matter. In those moments you pause and ask, is this my burden or theirs? This simple question acts as a fulcrum, shifting your energy back into your own orbit. You learn that detachment is not apathy, but the root of sustainable compassion. Through this ongoing evolution, you transition from empathic martyr to empathic sovereign. You channel the archetype of the balanced mediator, one who navigates the spectrum of emotion without losing sight of the self. Your empathy becomes a deliberate choice, an act of courage rather than an automatic response. You stand firm in the knowledge that preserving your boundaries amplifies rather than diminishes your capacity to heal. You are becoming an emissary of discernment and devotion, co-creating with the world from a place of wholeness. The next chapter will chart how you cultivate lasting resilience by weaving these practices into the tapestry of daily life. You awaken to the rhythm of your own heartbeat rather than the pulse of everyone else's distress. Each sunrise greets you with a quiet sovereignty, a reminder that your life's narrative belongs to you alone. In this newborn day, you choose practices that fortify your spirit. A few moments of grounding breath before screens light up demands a pause to notice how your body feels before stepping into another's emotional landscape. These rituals, humble as morning dew, weave resilience into the very fabric of your being. As you move through the world, you notice nuances you once missed, the way your chest tightens when someone wades too close into your emotional territory, the subtle thrill when you hold compassion without surrender. You call this threshold awareness, the empath's sixth sense, refined into a practical guide. When you sense the threshold vibrating with someone else's turmoil, you name it internally. Boundary here. This naming practice carves sacred space around your energy like chanting a mantra that claims what is yours. When conflict ignites, you no longer implode inwardly, crushing your own needs beneath the avalanche of others' grievances. Instead, you stand firm in your center and listen with equanimity. You mirror their words with measured calm. I hear your frustration, and I am here while your inner boundary, solid as tempered steel, holds fast. In this way, you model a healthy container for emotion, demonstrating that one can feel deeply without being overwhelmed. You remember how fatigue once followed you like a shadow, draining each cell until your light flickered. Now you guard your energy as a precious artifact, refusing invitations that erode your reserves, overly dramatic dramas, obligation, laden gatherings, emotional codependence disguised as intimacy. When you decline, you do so with grace. I'm honoring my need for rest today. No apology required. Your yeses carry weight precisely because they are chosen. Trauma's imprint softens as you integrate your own story. You revisit old wounds, not as a victim, but as a witness, compassionate, curious, impartial. You journal the scenes that once trapped you in loops of healing others at the expense of yourself. In writing each memory, you sense chords of emotion, release freeing energy for self-nurture. Shadow integration teaches that every fragment of pain reclaimed strengthens your wholeness, turning old scars into symbols of survival. In group settings, you practice energetic hygiene, the gentle exhalation of empathy as others speak, ensuring you don't hold their pain inside. You feel the ebb of collective sorrow wash past your boundaries, leaving you steady. Your presence becomes a balm offering, listening without harboring trauma. People respond to this grounded empathy with unexpected trust. They feel safe to be vulnerable, because your boundaries signal that you will not be consumed by their stories. Romantic entanglements transform under your new paradigm. You no longer mistake emotional intensity for love's depth. Instead, you seek partnerships where mutual respect and self-care flourish. You value the partner who retreats to process emotions alone as much as the one who leans into your embrace. Together you choreograph an empathic dance of give and take, balancing closeness with autonomy. You find solace in solitude, not from loneliness, but from replenishment. In silent walks through green spaces, you dissolve residual energies into earth and air. You collect moments of pure aliveness, a bird's song, the sun's warmth, your own laughter storing them, like luminous jewels in the treasury of self. These recollections become touchstones for your mood, reminders that joy and peace reside within, independent of external circumstances. Friends observe your transformation and ask how you maintain such poise. You share your secret weapon, boundary awareness interwoven with self-compassion. You teach them to ask, whose emotion is this, before they automatically absorb it. Some laugh in relief. I thought it was just me, as they reclaim parts of themselves they'd sacrificed in empathic overdrive. Nevertheless, you stay vigilant. You know that growth is not linear. Temptations to revert will arise when you're tired or stressed. In those moments, you lean on your affirmation, I belong to myself first. You visualize it like a lighthouse beacon that always guides you back to center. Even if you stumble, the mantra resets your course without shame or self-blame. Your daily life becomes a testament to sustainable empathy, one fueled by self-care, tempered by wisdom, and animated by genuine compassion. Each interaction, from the fleeting exchange at the coffee shop to the depth of a trusted friend's confession, is conducted with conscious boundaries. You hold presence without possession, empathy without erasure. As this practice solidifies, you sense a wellspring of personal power you once feared pursuing. It is not domination, but sovereignty of self, the ability to feel deeply, act kindly, and preserve integrity simultaneously. You embody the paradox of the empath who remains open to the world's suffering while steadfastly protecting her own soul. You venture deeper into the landscape of your own psyche, discovering hidden alcoves where unprocessed emotions linger like forgotten statues frozen in time. In one chamber, you find the echo of a childhood longing to be seen, a tiny voice whispering that your worth depended on soothing others. You breathe into that voice now, offering acknowledgement rather than resignation. As you hold space for this younger self, you sense a shift. The energy once spent rescuing becomes available to nourish your own evolution. You begin to see resilience not as an innate trait, but as a muscle strengthened through deliberate practice. Each time you notice the pull to overgive and choose instead to honor your limit, you flex that muscle. Slowly, the tremors that once signaled overwhelm settle into a steady hum of empowerment. This hum is your new anthem, a steady rhythm beneath the clamor of external demands. In moments of doubt, you recall Stoic reflections Epictetus taught that you have power over your interpretations, not external events. When another's agony beckons you, interpret it as information, not an obligation. You listen without absorbing, observe, without overturning your internal equilibrium. This reframing transforms empathic sensitivity into an asset rather than a liability, a conduit for compassion directed with wisdom, not collateral damage. Third-person provocations circle like hawks. She will never be needed if she stops giving so much. He might discover that kindness without sacrifice lacks meaning. These voices test the fortitude of your boundaries, but you let them drift past. You recognize them as remnants of old survival scripts that equated self-erasure with value. You rip those scripts from their moorings, replacing them with new narratives, ones where self-care is the root of genuine care for others. Your relationships become fertile ground for equitable exchange. In family gatherings, you no longer collapse beneath the gravitational pull of shared trauma. Instead, you offer empathy, like a balanced ledger, equal deposits of understanding and withdrawals of autonomy. Loved ones notice the change, conversations deepen, conflicts resolve with fewer casualties, and emotional debts feel less suffocating. You learn that healthy interdependence flows from mutual acknowledgement of boundaries, not from unconscious absorption. At work, you apply the same principles. You no longer volunteer for every crisis, nor do you turn compassionate work into self-sacrifice. You attend to colleagues' needs with professionalism and discernment, knowing that your well-being is not a separate concern, but the foundation of sustainable contribution. You witness how preserving your energy paradoxically amplifies your effectiveness, inspiring respect rather than pity. Your self-care rituals evolve from reactive to proactive. You schedule solitude as though it were a meeting with the most important person in your life, yourself. In those appointed hours, you explore creative impulses without guilt, painting, writing, dancing, in response to the rhythms of your own spirit. These practices become ceremonies of reclamation, each brushstroke and word a claim staked on your inner territory. Trauma integration continues as a pilgrimage rather than a destination. You revisit old wounds with the curiosity of an archaeologist, gently excavating layers of fear and shame. With each discovery, you offer the compassion you once reserved for others to the parts of you that needed it most. Bit by bit, you reconstruct a psyche where every fragment, no matter how dark or broken, finds a place in the mosaic of your being. Energetic hygiene becomes second nature. You imagine a crystalline shield around your aura, allowing warmth and kindness to pass through while reflecting back emotional debris that does not belong to you. When you encounter someone steeped in crisis, you hold that shield as a companion, transparent yet impenetrable. You offer a clear channel for connection without sacrificing your sanctum. Your sense of purpose crystallizes. You realize that being an empath does not mean salvaging every soul. It means being a guide, a mirror, a compassionate witness to others' journeys while charting your own path with integrity. You understand that you cannot save everyone, and that attempting to do so only multiplies suffering. Instead, you save yourself first, and in doing so you become a beacon that others may choose to follow. Still, the path demands vigilance. You integrate a nightly reflection, asking, "Where did I overextend today? Where did I honor myself?" These questions serve as navigational stars, keeping you oriented toward balance. When you spot an overreach, you course correct with gentle resolve, reclaiming your center without self-reproach. With each passing day, you feel your heart expand not outward into endless absorption, but inward into ever-deepening compassion for your own journey. You stand at the threshold of mastery, not of controlling others' emotions, but of stewarding your own with unwavering devotion. In this space, empathy becomes alchemy, the transformation of raw sensitivity into the gold of sustainable love. Soon the final part will unveil the summit of this journey, where you emerge into full sovereignty, unbound by the tides of external pain and crowned by the freedom of self-authorship. You stand at the threshold of transformation, feeling the contours of your reclaimed self sharpen, like newly forged steel. Each dawn you greet carries a promise not of saving the world, but of stewarding your own inner kingdom. You have learned to carry empathy as a lantern, illuminating dark paths, without extinguishing its flame to light every cavern. In the quiet spaces between obligations, you nurture your own creative spark, knowing that your brilliance is a gift you owe yourself before offering it to another. When someone's suffering ripples toward you, you observe the waves from your anchored center. You breathe in the information, their pain as data, not a mandate, and choose how deeply to dive. You no longer react with reflexive over-identification. Instead, you respond with deliberate compassion. This shift did not come overnight. It was hammered into place by every boundary you drew, every no you granted yourself, and every moment you honored your own heartbeat over the siren call of external rescue. Third-person voices still circle like scavengers. She will become too detached to care. He risks losing the spark of soul that made him special. These provocations test your emerging sovereignty. You let them pass, recognizing them as echoes of the old scripts that equated worth with sacrifice. You affirm instead, empathy does not demand self-erasure. It flourishes in the fertile ground of self-respect, where connection arises from choice rather than compulsion. You watch your life unfold like a novel written in conscious strokes. You set the tone, pace, and boundaries of each chapter. Relationships become chapters of mutual growth. You hold space for another's story without ceding authorship of your own. When conflict arrives, you neither collapse nor retaliate. You stand within your boundary, listening to the tension, then articulate your truth with clarity. This balanced exchange feels unfamiliar at first, as though you're learning to walk on solid ground after years of wading in stormy waters. Yet each step fortifies you. Energy care now intertwines with self-compassion. You no longer view rest as a luxury, but as a requirement of sustainable love for yourself and others. You schedule withdrawal as sacred a solitude retreat, where you tend to your own emotional garden. There, you prune away lingering codependent vines, allowing new shoots of authentic desire to flourish. You plant seeds of joy in creative endeavors, cultivating pleasure as a serious business worthy of time and reverence. Trauma's residue, once a toxic sludge you carried for everyone, now serves as fertilizer for personal evolution. You revisit painful memories with the poised curiosity of a seasoned guide, acknowledging each wound's lesson. You thank the younger self who carried burdens on your behalf, then gently release those responsibilities back to their rightful owners. In this rebirth, your empathy matures into a conscious art, a practice of witnessing without swallowing, of giving without draining. You notice changes ripple through your world. Colleagues respect your limits and trust your contributions more deeply. Friends seek your company for the steadiness you emanate. Loved ones connect with you as an equal, not a crutch. Sometimes when you pause to reflect, you feel a thrill at how freedom tastes unannotated by guilt or obligation. You realize that sovereignty and service are not adversaries, but allies. When you serve from fullness, your impact resonates more deeply than when you served from emptiness. Still, vigilance remains your companion. You carve moments into your calendar for boundary audits, brief check-ins to examine where you overshot or held back. These honest inquiries keep you aligned, ensuring that empathy remains a choice, not a chore. You practice compassionate detachment, the art of caring without cohabiting another's pain. It is a dance of two souls, each sovereign moving together without fusion. In the unfolding of this practice, you sense a deeper purpose emerge. Not every empathic journey is meant to rescue. Many are meant to reflect, guide, and inspire. Your most profound gift may lie not in alleviating every sorrow, but in modeling a path to self-sovereignty for other empaths lost in the tides. Your story becomes a map, offering hope that one can feel deeply and still stand unshaken. As the horizon of your journey stretches ahead, you feel anticipation for the final ascent, where integration and emergence converge into a radiant culmination of self-authority and compassionate presence. You prepare to step into that summit with the full force of your integrated shadow, armed with wisdom, resilience, and unwavering self-love. The summit rises before you, bathed in dawn's pale light, and you step onto its plateau with steady breath. No longer drawn into the trenches of others' suffering, you stand in the expanse of your own sovereignty. Your heart, once a porous vessel, now holds a sacred chamber guarded by compassion and discernment. Each beat resonates with clarity. This life is yours to author, anchored by boundaries that honor your needs as fiercely as your acts of kindness. You look back at the winding path you've traversed, every boundary drawn, every no voiced, every ritual of self-restoration performed, and feel deep gratitude for each trial that forged your resilience. The empath who once dissolved into the pain of strangers has been transmuted into a sovereign presence whose empathy radiates without depleting. You have reclaimed the energy that once escaped like mist, weaving it into a tapestry of self-possession and strength. Third-person whispers drift across this summit. She has distilled compassion into distilled power. He wields empathy like a beacon instead of a drain. These echoes are not boasts, but reflections of your transformed essence, a testament to the integration of shadow and light. No longer do you fear being too guarded or too giving. You have learned that healthy firmness and fluid warmth can coexist, each enhancing the other. In this space, you sense a profound alchemy. Your boundaries no longer feel like fences, but like the arches of a cathedral, delicate yet unbreakable, enclosing a sanctuary of authenticity. Strangers, friends, and loved ones who approach feel the safety of your presence, trusting that their sorrow will be witnessed but not absorbed. Your counsel flows from a place of fullness, each word a measured offering rather than a desperate plea for connection. You smile as you recall past nights spent weeping for pain that was not yours, and you acknowledge how necessary those tears were for learning self-compassion. Now when grief comes knocking, whether your own or another's, you greet it as a guest, not a squatter. You hold space without hosting a takeover, guiding sorrow toward release, rather than letting it take root in your psyche. Trauma's echoes may still surface, but they no longer define you. You honor each memory with a bow of recognition and then release it back to its rightful chronology, freeing the present moment from the weight of unprocessed yesterdays. Each release expands your inner world, leaving room for joy, creativity, and connection born of mutual, not unilateral devotion. Energy management has become an artful dance. You lean into the currents of kindness when they serve your purpose and step aside when they threaten to sweep you off your center. You practice compassionate detachment, caring deeply without cohabiting another's pain. In doing so, you model for other empaths a sustainable way to live a life where service springs from strength rather than compulsion. Romantic love deepens in this new paradigm. You no longer conflate intensity with passion. Instead, you cultivate love that rests in peaceful interdependence. Your partner becomes a fellow sovereign, sharing the space of your heart without encroaching on its walls. Together you build a shared kingdom, founded on respect, mutual growth, and the freedom to flourish both as one and as individuals. Friends marvel at your steadiness. They feel invited to be vulnerable, yet they know their grief will not consume you. Your empathy now acts as a mirror, reflecting their emotions with lucidity, rather than absorbing them into your own bloodstream. This clarity creates a deeper intimacy, one not forged in the crucible of mutual collapse, but in the harmony of two whole selves choosing to connect. As you survey the horizon, you recognize that your journey is both complete and just beginning. Sovereignty is not a destination, but a living covenant you uphold daily through boundaries, self-care, and the courageous integration of shadow. You understand that empathy tempered by self-respect is one of the rarest forms of power, the power to heal without harm, to connect without surrender. Now you stand fully emerged, an empath reborn into self-sovereignty, a beacon of conscious compassion. Your light no longer flickers under the weight of the world's pain. It shines steady and unwavering, illuminating the path for others to follow without sacrificing your own. You are the empath who found her own heart and let it guide the world.